Detective James Parker stood in the dim light of the Athens Museum's storage room, examining the ancient coffin before him. The wooden box, decorated with intricate Greek patterns, had arrived last week from an archaeological dig. But something wasn't right. "When did you first notice the problem?" he asked Maria Stavros, the museum curator. "This morning," she replied, wringing her hands. The coffin was supposed to contain important artifacts from the 5th century BC. But when we opened it for cataloguing, everything was gone. Parker ran his fingers along the coffin's edge. The wood felt smooth, too smooth for something supposedly thousands of years old. Who had access to the storage room? Only 4 people: myself, Dr. Adams the archaeologist, George the security guard, and Helen from restoration. Parker nodded, making notes. The case seemed simple, at first a theft from a museum storage room, but as he investigated deeper, things got more complicated. Dr. Adams had a perfect alibi. He'd been giving a lecture when the theft occurred. George the security guard's record was clean, and the security cameras showed him doing his regular rounds. Helen from restoration had been working on other artifacts all day, verified by multiple colleagues. But Maria's story didn't add up. She claimed to have discovered the empty coffin in the morning, yet the security logs showed she'd entered the storage room at midnight. Parker decided to take a closer look at the coffin itself. Under strong light, he noticed something odd: tiny specks of modern glue around the edges. This wasn't an ancient Greek coffin at all. He called the archaeological team in Greece. His suspicions were confirmed. The real coffin and artifacts were still at the dig site, delayed by permit issues. This coffin was a fake. "Maria," Parker said quietly, "want to tell me what really happened?" The curator's face crumbled. "I needed the money," she whispered. "A private collector offered me a fortune for the artifacts. I had the fake coffin made to replace the real one when it arrived. But then the shipment got delayed." "And you panicked," Parker finished. "You staged this theft to cover your tracks." "The collector threatened to expose me if I didn't deliver," Maria said, tears rolling down her cheeks. "I didn't know what else to do." Parker shook his head. "The artifacts belong in the museum, Maria. They're part of history, not someone's private collection." In the end, the case was solved without the real artifacts ever being at risk. Maria confessed and helped authorities track down the private collector. The genuine Greek coffin arrived 2 weeks later, its precious contents intact. As Parker watched the real artifacts being carefully catalogued, he reflected on how greed could make people risk everything: their career, reputation, and freedom. The mystery of the Greek coffin wasn't about a theft after all. It was about preservation, not just of ancient artifacts, but of the trust people place in those who guard our history. Dr. Adams appeared beside him. "Brilliant work, detective. How did you know the coffin was fake?" Parker smiled. "In my experience, the simplest answer is usually correct. When the evidence doesn't match the story, there's always more beneath the surface, just like in archaeology." The ancient coffin now rests securely in the Athens Museum, its mysteries preserved for future generations to study and admire. And somewhere in a case file, the story of the fake coffin serves as a reminder that sometimes the greatest mysteries aren't about what was stolen, but why.